Now, when you're looking in images, you'll always notice that there's gradients. And when you're using the clone stamp, what happens if you go against a gradient? Like, let's say, for example, see this little stray hair here? I'm going to make a clone stamp. Now, guys, when you're using a clone stamp on a transparent layer, what should this be set to? Current and below. And on a transparent layer, I'm going to get rid of this evil hair here. So I'm going to grab a clone stamp, 100% opacity. Do I need a brush this big to get rid of a hair that small? No. Watch this. I'm going to take a brush that's not that much larger than the hair itself. There can be a lot of detail in this background here. And if you aren't careful, you can smudge it around to the point where you get this kind of weird smudgy look around the outside. I'm going to take this hair, I'm going to sample from here. Notice the dark line is going this direction. There's a gradient going vertically. If I go perpendicular to the gradient, say I sample here, and I move over to here, notice how that plus sign, that's my source, is in an area of similar brightness. And so far, so good. Until, notice now, my plus sign is in a darker area. We've got actually two gradients, one going this direction for this dark band, and one going this direction for this dark band. So this would actually be a two-step hair. I'll sample over here, clone my way up. When it starts changing brightness, I'll actually change the direction that I'm cloning. I'm going to clone vertically now. So I'll grab this and sample it over top of there. And we can clone that out. So we can make our way around the outside and just get the worst of them. Don't feel that you need to go in and get every single stray. Like we said, if you take out everything, if I went and got all of these little stray hairs around here, she would start to look kind of artificial, almost like she's been cut out and dropped into a different scene. So just get the worst of them. Work your way around and pick out the most obvious strays. I probably used this analogy before, but retouching is a lot like cleaning up your apartment. You got some friends coming over and your apartment is like the most disastrous, horrible mess you can imagine. There's stuff piled everywhere and they say they're going to be there in about 10 minutes. If you run around the apartment frantically for 10 minutes, throwing things into drawers, sweeping up little bits of stuff from the floor, you can make an incredible difference. The before and after would be like, wow, what an amazing difference. But if you had a little bit more time, let's say you spent an extra half an hour just kind of, cleaning some more things, tidying and dusting over here, the difference from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, that second half hour, would that be as big of a difference as the first 10 minutes? Wouldn't be as noticeable, would it? You could then spend an extra, 4 hours, brushing things with your toothbrush, cleaning the top of the door frames and the windows. And the difference from 40 minutes to, 2 hours and 40 minutes would barely be noticeable. The biggest change comes in the first few minutes. And this is the same thing with retouching. As I'm cloning away these hairs here, just by doing the very worst ones, very quickly, watch this. If I do a before and after, there's before and there's after. That's a pretty noticeable difference. If I went in and got a bunch of smaller ones, it would take me longer, but the difference wouldn't be nearly as noticeable. So just kind of work your way around the outside, hitting the most noticeable ones. Do that before and after every now and then just to see how things are going. A little bit of a morale booster. Also helps you make sure you don't overdo it. And you can see in the front here, some of these come out into the green tiles. Again, watch for the gradients and change the direction as necessary. And the reason for using such a small brush is to disturb as few pixels as possible. Ideally, we want to be able to turn this layer off and on and have it look like those hairs simply disappear, as though they'd never even been there, with no shifting in the background. Now the hairs going across the background, those are on a nice soft gradient. We're just looking for gradients here. But what about the more diabolical stray hairs? The stray hairs that go over top of other hairs. Take a look on the screen for a second. Look at these guys. Look right behind her ear. See this little hair across here and down around here? You can see there's some up on the forehead. How do we get rid of this hair without messing up the pattern below it? Same sort of idea. It's not a gradient, but there is a distinct direction to the hairs below. So if I wanted to take out this little hair around here, I got to figure out, first off, what's going to stay. This is going to go. This is going to stay. So if I clone in the same direction as the hair that's going to stay, I can basically take this hair and clone it over top of the hair I want to get rid of. But the direction is particularly important. So if I sample down here, boink, I can take this bit of hair and clone it right over top of itself. And look at how that hair simply vanishes. Now, there's a distinct angle to that hair. And if I keep using that angle for the rest of the hair, well, some very bad things are going to happen. So don't be afraid to change the direction. So I started cloning this direction. Now for these hairs, I'm going to clone this direction. So I'll sample over here, and I'll clone up to there. You can see from that plus that I've matched the angle. And again, if I clone from here down, I can clone that away. So see if you can do some of those diabolical stray hairs. Look for stray hairs that are going over top of other hairs. Look for the direction of the hair below and match it. And again, you should be able to turn that layer off and on and have it look as though those hairs simply disappear, as though they'd never been there to begin with.